Close-ups on discarded images, objects of dreadful freedom, of a freedom objectified, hieroglyphs of desire, deliberately tactile things, dynamic tableau, groping for the fantasy, small portraits of eternal blonde beauty enveloped in red, the guilt, the shame, the love, the truth, framed and carried and held and kept untouched inside most objects we feel for. Martin Scorsese's 1993 film The Age of Innocence captures the wreckage of an upper-class hieroglyphic universe, its pieces of orphaned objects imbued with meanings. Objects and images that exercise more romantic freedom than any actual living character can. It's a world of complicated gestures and movements, arranged and predestined, performative artifice, silently observing eyes and patiently listening ears, papers, letters, and paintings, door keys, cigarettes, and books. The Age of Innocence gives us a hieroglyphic world where the real thing was never said or done or even thought, but only represented by a set of arbitrary signs. Newland Archer objectifies his own passion by concealing it within the nostalgia of discarded artifacts. She was different. Whenever he thought of her, it had been abstractly, serenely, like an imaginary loved one in a book or picture. She had become the complete vision of all that he had missed. Even the act of holding the concept of innocence to a certain age fetishizes the age and objectifies that which was innocent. A fantasy itself is an object of the mind, and Newland ultimately chooses the object of love over the love itself. He tells Ellen Olenska, "You gave me my first glimpse of a real life, and then you told me to carry on with a false one. No one can endure that." Well, Ellen had been enduring that. And yet it wasn't the inauthentic life that agonized Newland so much as his desire to have an arbitrary choice in the matter, a choice Ellen never honestly withheld from him. She never gave me a choice. In the triangle of Newland, Ellen, and May ultimately, in an act of villainy, had never given him a choice. She always knew of his feelings for Ellen, their meetings and long looks. Newland thought he had a choice between the fiery and unconventional rebellion of Ellen Olenska and the artificial trappings of the conventional and pure and seemingly innocent May Welland. But he never truly did. May always knew too well what was happening, and when May wanted for it to stop, she stripped Newland of all his vestiges, of all his perceived freedoms, however limited he himself thought them to be, and kept him a captive, as an artifact of her youth and upbringing. A prisoner in the center of privilege, an armed camp of social critics and conspirators. I believe May died a delusional queen of New York high society, from an incapacity to change, as a physically dazzling relic of a hard, bright blindness, died thinking the world was a good place, full of loving and harmonious households like hers. The truth, not that the truth holds much value without a vessel to keep it hidden inside of, not in this world. The truth is, everyone concealed their thoughts from her. But she never gave them a choice, right? She must have known. Yet a truth unobjectified is truth without trace, without its fantasy or visceral nostalgia. May wins. May Welland, our innocent champion. And Newland learned or was trained to cherish nostalgia and found himself defeated by the concept of it. I've covered Martin Scorsese several times on this channel, and several times I have said that the secret to Martin Scorsese is that every film is secretly, and sometimes not so secretly, actually a film about God. So where is God in the Age of Innocence? Well, I think it's clearly obvious. God is objectified. God is in objects. God is in the meaning we ascribe certain objects. We subscribe to certain things. God is objectified. God is a fashion victim. Fashion is a serious consideration among those who have nothing else to consider. The Age of Innocence follows 3 incredibly beautiful fashion victims, and God is no different. God may be objectified within a Bible, within a candle, within a building like a church. God is objectified in these holy things, or these holy moments, these holy bits of nostalgia, these holy chunks of them hold divine purpose in our minds. But that divine purpose, that divine meaning, that objectified meaning, that fashionable meaning is not God itself. In fact, I think that the only thing it symbolizes is the absence of God. The Age of Innocence gives us a world where God is trapped, held captive inside discarded images. Scorsese's composition is incredible. He dedicated this film to his father, and it's such a lovingly made film. We have these blinding blasts of passion. There's so much style. The camera is always on the move, and his muses this time around. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Winona Ryder. Oh my God, I am thirsty for days. This is one of the most attractive casts of the 90s. I am inexplicably drawn towards each individual a ridiculous amount, like at a ridiculous volume. I love them to death. Winona Ryder in particular is particularly unsung. While, of course, we know Daniel Day-Lewis does a wonderful job. Michelle Pfeiffer, this might be her best acting ever. She is incredible in this film. Absolutely incredible. And Scorsese really compassionately framed her in this hieroglyphic universe and made her the most important object in it, because it's kind of impossible not to objectify your main stars in a film that is about objectification, but he allows us to see within these people, within these objectified personages. But Winona Ryder is so good in this film, and she's mostly unsung because she is quite an unlikable person. But I mean, I think she's startlingly beautiful. I've always thought she was incredibly sexy. And here, she's kind of vicious. But she's vicious in an incredibly polite and fashionable way. She's incredibly in fashion, in vogue, but cruel. Completely cruel. She is mostly the villain of the piece, unless the villain of the piece is the age itself, but she is completely representative, a symbol of the conventions of the age. So by proxy of the age being a kind of antagonistic factor in the film, especially something that blocks, that keeps Daniel Day-Lewis and Michelle Pfeiffer's characters separated by fashion and good taste. If Winona Ryder is a symbol of that kind of repression, then she is the repression itself, objectified, correct? Because that's what the film is honestly, endlessly about, and Winona Ryder did a marvelous job, at cruelty, at really well-mannered. The etiquette of cruelty is beautifully realized by Winona Ryder and Martin Scorsese in this film. And the passion between Michelle Pfeiffer and Daniel Day-Lewis is visceral, it's palpable. I love when Scorsese gives us their hands touching each other. Like, every touch is so visceral, every touch is so impactful, so full of a blunt emotional impact that you feel every touch they lay upon each other, every single time. It's kind of unreal. It's kind of unreal in that respect. Almost like unreally human, because I don't know about you guys, but I felt that way about certain kind of like forbidden desires, being around people that you shouldn't really be that close to, and yet there is this undeniable pulse between you guys, a pulse of something that is there, that exists, that is beating. A pulse of something possibly authentic, and if not authentic, then at least impassioned. And in this world where passion is stifled and repressed, then all passion must be seen as, if not revelatory, then at least a proper escape into something that mirrors a bit of the old authenticity. The Age of Innocence is a remarkable film. It's one of Martin Scorsese's best directed films, one of his best compositions. I'm completely in love with the film. It's a really, really striking film. I respond to it very deeply, very emotionally, because it might show us the bitter nostalgia of a certain age, but that certain age has not left us. There are still fashion victims all around us, all around me, at least in my personal sphere. Sometimes passion is agreed upon to be tasteless, and that should never be the case. And yet, here we are, living in a hieroglyphic world, always and forever.